Blood sprayed across the cabin wall as Thomas Beck crushed the young gunman's throat with one fluid motion, the same deadly precision that had once made him the CIA's most feared assassin. The second intruder barely had time to scream before discovering why intelligence agencies still whispered about the ghost. 3 desperate fugitives had just broken into the wrong Montana cabin. They saw a helpless 70-year-old man reading by the fire. They found a killer who had eliminated targets on 4 continents before retiring to escape his nightmares. Now, as a winter storm rages outside, they're about to learn why some predators don't lose their fangs with age. They just wait longer to strike. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 8 hours earlier, Thomas Beck's morning routine never varied. 20 years of retirement hadn't softened the military precision of his habits. At exactly 5:30 a.m., he awoke in his sparse bedroom, eyes immediately alert. No gradual transition from sleep to consciousness. Old instincts died hard, if they died at all. The cabin's wooden floors creaked beneath his feet as he moved through his morning exercises. His joints protested more these days, but he maintained the same routine he'd followed since his CIA days. Stretches designed to maintain flexibility, grip exercises to keep his hands strong, balance work that had once helped him navigate narrow ledges in Tehran. Through the frost-covered windows, dawn painted the Montana wilderness in shades of pale gold. 2 feet of fresh snow had fallen overnight, transforming the landscape into an untouched white expanse. Beck checked his perimeter sensors, a habit his neighbors would have found paranoid if they'd known about them. All clear, as it had been every morning for the past 7,312 days. The coffee maker gurgled to life at precisely 6:15 a.m. Colombian dark roast, the same brand he'd discovered during an operation in Bogotá in '82. Some memories were worth keeping. He poured it into his favorite mug, a chipped piece of ceramic his daughter had given him before he'd chosen the job over family. Sheriff Kate Morrison's patrol car crunched through the snow, right on schedule. Every Tuesday and Friday, like clockwork. She was good that way, predictable, reliable, everything he'd never been able to be. Beck watched through his window as she navigated the narrow path to his door. "Morning, Mr. Beck," she called out as he opened the door before she could knock. "Just checking in on our favorite hermit." He offered a grandfatherly smile, the same one he'd perfected for his cover as a professor in Budapest. "Coffee's hot, Sheriff." Kate stepped inside, snow falling from her boots. She was young, maybe 35, but sharp. She reminded him of Agent Santos in Colombia, before everything went wrong. "You know, most folks would go crazy living up here alone, especially in winter." Beck poured her coffee into the second-best mug. "I prefer the quiet. That's what worries me." She accepted the coffee gratefully. "Got reports of some trouble down in Millbrook. Bank robbery gone bad. 3 suspects headed into the mountains." His hand didn't tighten on the mug. His breathing didn't change. 20 years of retirement hadn't dulled those instincts either. "Long way from here." Still. Kate's eyes scanned his cabin. Simple furniture, well-worn books, the comfortable clutter of an old man's retirement. She never noticed the reinforced door frames, the slightly thicker walls, the strategic placement of every piece of furniture. "Maybe think about staying with your daughter for a few days." The lie came smoothly, practiced over years. "She's in Europe, fashion show in Milan." In truth, Sarah hadn't spoken to him in 18 years. Not since she'd discovered what her quiet professor father really did during those long overseas trips. Some bridges couldn't be rebuilt. "Well, keep your doors locked." Kate finished her coffee. "Cell reception's spotty with this storm coming. In radio if you need anything." Beck watched her leave. Tracks in the snow, the only evidence of her visit. By tomorrow, fresh powder would erase even those. Nature was good at covering tracks. He'd learned that lesson in Siberia. The rest of his morning followed its usual pattern, reading by the fire. Sun Tzu today, though his copy of The Art of War was more prop than necessity. The lessons were carved into his muscle memory through decades of application. Light exercises to maintain mobility. Lunch at precisely noon. Soup and homemade bread. Skills learned during a long surveillance operation in France. But something felt different today. A tension in the air that reminded him of moments before operations went hot. His internal radar, honed through countless missions, hummed with warning. The storm was rolling in faster than predicted, thick clouds darkening the afternoon sky, perfect weather for people trying to disappear, or for people hunting them. Beck checked his security feeds again. Nothing but swirling snow. He moved through the cabin, mentally cataloguing equipment he hoped he'd never need again. Weapons cached in hidden compartments, escape routes planned and maintained, contingencies for contingencies. Some habits couldn't be broken, some instincts didn't fade, and sometimes the price of a quiet life was maintaining the ability to end the lives of those who would disturb it. As darkness fell early under the storm clouds, Beck settled into his favorite chair by the fire. The Art of War lay open in his lap, his coffee cooling beside him. To any observer, he was just another retiree passing time with a book. But his ears caught every creak of snow-laden branches outside. His eyes tracked movement in the shadows, and under his chair, within easy reach, lay tools he'd spent 20 years trying to forget how to use. The quiet life. Sometimes maintaining it required the loudest of actions. As the storm intensified outside, Beck's mind drifted to his last mission. 20 years hadn't dulled the memory of that night in Singapore. The weight of the rifle in his hands, the humidity that made his shirt cling to his back, the taste of copper in the air. He'd been tracking Anton Reznikov, a Russian arms dealer with diplomatic immunity and a taste for selling weapons to terrorists. The mission was supposed to be simple, a clean shot from 1,000 yards, untraceable, professional. The kind of work that had earned him the nickname Ghost. But then he'd seen her through his scope, Sarah, his daughter, standing next to Reznikov at the embassy gala, laughing at something the arms dealer had said. She was there for a fashion show, legitimate work, wrong place, wrong time. She had no idea the man beside her was marked for death, no idea her father was watching through crosshairs. Beck's hands tightened on his book as the memory washed over him. He'd hesitated. For the first time in 30 years of wet work, his finger had frozen on the trigger. That hesitation had cost lives. Good agents died because he couldn't take the shot with his daughter in the blast radius. The official report listed it as a mission failure. Acceptable losses in a dangerous game. But Beck knew the truth. He'd chosen family over duty, emotion over training, and people had died because of it. His retirement papers were filed the next day. The agency hadn't protested. He was getting old anyway, they said. Better to step away before he lost his edge completely. But they kept his number. Just in case, they always kept numbers. A branch cracked outside, heavy with snow. Beck's hand instinctively moved toward the hidden compartment beneath his chair. Another habit he couldn't break. His security sensors showed nothing but swirling white, but technology could be fooled. He'd done it himself often enough. The mission in Singapore had changed everything. Sarah had eventually discovered what her father really did for a living. The look in her eyes, horror, disgust, betrayal, had been worse than any torture he'd endured. She'd cut all contact, changed her number, moved without leaving a forwarding address. He'd respected her choice, kept tabs on her from a distance, making sure she was safe without interfering in her life. She had a family now, husband, 2 kids. They thought their grandfather was dead. Better that way. The fire needed feeding. Beck added another log, watching the flames catch. Fire had been his friend in Siberia, enemy in Venezuela. Every element could kill if you knew how to use it, or survive it. His joints ached as he stood, a reminder that even ghosts grew old. He moved to the window, watching snow erase the world outside. The storm would ground any rescue attempts, cut off communication. Perfect conditions for people who didn't want to be found, or for people hunting them. Beck checked his stored equipment for the third time today. Weapons cleaned and oiled, medical supplies current, comms equipment charged but disconnected, no electronic signatures to trace. Some called it paranoia. He called it survival. The agency still whispered his name sometimes, he knew. New operators learned about the ghost in training. 43 confirmed eliminations, probably twice that unconfirmed. A perfect record until Singapore. Until family complicated the equation. He'd chosen this cabin carefully. Remote enough for privacy, close enough to civilization for convenience, multiple escape routes, defensible positions, natural surveillance advantages. Even in retirement, he'd planned for contingencies. The storm howled outside, rattling windows, and scratching branches against walls. Beck settled back into his chair, the art of war open on his lap. His coffee had gone cold, but he didn't move to reheat it. Movement caught attention. Stillness was survival. 20 years of quiet couldn't erase what he was, what he'd done, what he could still do if necessary. He'd buried the ghost deep, wrapped himself in the comfortable disguise of a reclusive old man. But buried wasn't the same as dead. Some weapons didn't rust with age. They just gathered dust until needed. The afternoon deepened toward evening as Beck maintained his vigil. Storm or no storm, he knew trouble was coming. He could feel it in his bones, in the instincts that had kept him alive through decades of wet work. The question wasn't if, only when, and whether the ghost he'd tried so hard to bury would need to rise again. 15 miles away, in the heart of the storm, 3 figures trudged through knee-deep snow. Jake Martinez led the way, his prison-hardened frame fighting against the wind. Behind him, his younger brother Marcus stumbled, clutching his bleeding side. Bringing up the rear, Derek Walsh kept checking their backs, paranoid about pursuit. "We need to stop," Marcus gasped. The bullet wound from the bank guard wasn't fatal, but blood loss and cold were taking their toll. "I can't." "Keep moving," Jake snapped, but his eyes betrayed concern for his brother. The bank job hadn't gone according to plan. It was supposed to be simple, in and out in 3 minutes. Nobody was supposed to get hurt. Now they had a dead guard, a wounded crew member, and every cop in 3 counties looking for them. Derek caught up, his ex-military training evident in his movement. "There's a cabin marked on my map 2 miles north. Might be our only shot before this storm buries us." Jake studied their third member. Derek was the wild card, a stranger who'd approached them with the bank plan 2 weeks ago. Said he had inside information, knew when the security would be lightest. Now Jake wondered if they'd been played. "How'd you know about that cabin?" Jake demanded. Derek's face revealed nothing. "Used to hunt these mountains. Old man lives there alone. No threat." Marcus stumbled again, and Jake caught him. Blood had frozen in his brother's dark hair, making him look older than his 22 years. Too young for this life. But their options had run out months ago when their mother's cancer treatments bankrupted them. "I don't like it," Jake muttered, but they had no choice. The storm was getting worse, temperature dropping. They'd freeze if they didn't find shelter soon. Derek took point, moving with the precision that had first attracted Jake's attention. He claimed he'd learned it in the Rangers, but something about his story didn't add up. He was too smooth, too professional for a simple veteran down on his luck. "Talk to me, Marcus," Jake urged as they walked. "Tell me about that nursing program." "You wanted to join," Marcus managed a weak laugh. "Little late for that, isn't it? Felons don't make good nurses." "We'll figure something out. We always do." But Jake's confidence was forced. Their mother had died anyway, despite the loans and Sacrifices. Now they were fugitives, trudging through a Montana blizzard with stolen cash and a man Jake increasingly didn't trust. Derek held up a hand, signaling a stop. Through the swirling snow, a light glowed dimly. The cabin. Jake's prison-trained instincts screamed that it was too convenient, too perfect. But Marcus was leaving a blood trail in the snow, and the temperature was still dropping. "Remember the plan," Derek said, his voice carrying an authority Jake resented. "Quick in, secure the resident. Wait out the storm. No unnecessary violence." Jake noticed how Derek's hand kept straying to his jacket pocket. Not where he kept his gun, something else, but before he could question it, Marcus swayed dangerously. "No choice now," Jake growled. "But if this goes bad..." "It won't." Derek's confidence was absolute. Just an old man living alone. Probably. "Watch him piss himself in fear when we break in." They approached the cabin carefully, Derek pointing out security cameras they needed to avoid. Again, Jake wondered how he knew so much about this supposedly random shelter. But Marcus needed help, and questions would have to wait. Through the window, they saw their target, an elderly man sitting by the fire reading a book. He looked frail, harmless. Perfect. "See?" Derek whispered. Easy pickings, but something bothered Jake about the scene, the way the old man held himself perhaps, or how the furniture was arranged to create clear lines of sight to all entries. Details that tickled memories from his harder prison years. "I don't like it," he muttered again. "Your brother's bleeding out," Derek reminded him. "We're not exactly full of options." Marcus proved the point by stumbling again, barely catching himself. The snow around his feet was stained pink. Jake made his decision. "Quick and clean, no hurting the old man unless necessary." Derek smiled, and for a moment something cold and professional showed through his careful facade. "Trust me, this will all be over very soon." They moved toward the door, snow covering their tracks almost immediately. Jake couldn't shake the feeling they were walking into something bigger than a simple home invasion. But with his brother's life on the line, what choice did he have? The old man turned a page in his book, seemingly oblivious to their approach. In moments, Jake thought, they'd have shelter, medical supplies, and a chance to survive this mess. He had no way of knowing they were about to break into the worst possible cabin in all of Montana. The door exploded inward with a crack that echoed through the cabin. Beck didn't look up from his book. "Not yet. Let them make the first mistake. Don't move, old man." Jake's voice carried forced bravado. "Prison yard tactics, ineffective." Beck counted footsteps. 3 sets, one steady and confident, military training, one shuffling and labored, injured, one trying to sound heavy but stepping light, experienced but nervous. His fingers stayed relaxed on his book, but his mind calculated angles, distances, threats. "Please!" Marcus gasped, collapsing against a wall. Blood dripped onto Beck's hardwood floor. "We just need help." "Shut up!" Derek snapped, moving with practiced precision toward Beck. His stance was wrong for Rangers, more like private military, Blackwater maybe, or something worse. Beck turned another page. Sun Tzu's words blurred as his focus shifted to the weapon in Derek's hand. Suppressed Sig Sauer P226. Standard CIA field issue. This wasn't a random. "Break in. Listen, mister." Jake tried diplomacy, worry for his brother evident. "We don't want trouble. My brother's hurt. We just need supplies and shelter till the storm passes." Beck finally looked up. His eyes met Derek's, and recognition flickered there. Professional to professional, hunter to hunter. The younger man's hand tightened on his weapon. "Medicine cabinets in the bathroom," Beck said, voice gravelly with age and disuse. "First aid kit under the sink." Jake hesitated, thrown by the easy compliance. "Marcus, check it out, but careful." "He's not going anywhere," Beck said, gesturing at his book. "Too cold outside." Derek's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Awful trusting for a man in your position." Beck shrugged. What position is that? Alone. Isolated. Helpless. The last word hung in the air like a challenge. Beck noticed Derek shifting his stance, creating a clear line of fire, not at Beck, at Marcus. Insurance against resistance. Jake caught the movement too, prison instincts warning him something was wrong. "Derek, what are you—" The shot was silenced, but still loud in the confined space. Marcus screamed as a bullet tore through his already injured side. He collapsed, medical supplies scattering across the floor. "No!" Jake lunged for his brother, but Derek's gun swung. To track him. "Stay still," Derek ordered. "This doesn't have to get messy." Beck turned another page, waited. "You son of a bitch," Jake snarled. "You set us up." "Nothing personal," Derek said. "Just needed a believable reason to visit Mr. Beck. Here. Can't have anyone questioning why 3 random fugitives picked this particular cabin." Beck closed his book carefully, set it aside. "Agency or private sector?" Derek's smile widened. "Someone remembers the game. Both, actually. There's good money in retrieving agency ghosts these days. Lots of people interested in their old secrets." "My brother's dying," Jake's voice cracked. "What the hell are you talking about?" "Your brother was dead the moment he signed on," Derek said coldly. "You both were. Just needed you to get me close enough." He turned back to Beck. "Now, about those Singapore files." Beck's hand moved, just a small gesture, reaching for his coffee mug. Derek's gun tracked the movement instantly. Professional, careful, not careful enough. The mug shattered as Beck threw it, scalding coffee and ceramic shards exploding toward Derek's face. The younger man fired instinctively, bullet gouging wood where Beck had been sitting, but Beck wasn't there anymore. 20 years melted away as muscle memory took over. His left hand swept Derek's gun arm wide, while his right drove upward, crushing the younger man's throat with lethal precision. Derek's eyes widened in shock, then recognition, then nothing. Jake stared in horror as his former partner crumpled. The frail old man was gone, replaced by something lean and lethal and utterly calm. "Get your brother to the couch," Beck ordered, already moving to retrieve his medical kit. The real one, not the basic supplies in the bathroom. "Bullet's still inside. He's got maybe 10 minutes. You killed him." "No." Beck checked Derek's impulse, then efficiently stripped him of weapons and equipment. "But he'll wish I had when he wakes up. Agency trained. They don't die easily." Marcus groaned from his position on the floor. Beck moved to examine him, hands steady as they had been in 100 combat zones. "Would have been kinder to let him bleed out. Now he's involved." "Involved in what?" Jake demanded, helping lift his brother. "What the hell is happening?" Beck's eyes were cold as the storm outside. "That's what we're going to find out. But first, we need to keep your brother alive. After that," he glanced at Derek's unconscious form, "after that, we find out who sent him, and why they're suddenly interested in a ghost who's been quiet for 20 years. The storm howled outside as Beck began working on Marcus's wounds. The quiet life was over. Now it was time to remember how to be something else, something that had never really died, just waited. Blood stained Beck's hands as he worked on Marcus's wounds. Not the first time, probably not the last. The younger man had passed out from the pain, which was a mercy. "Hold him steady," Beck ordered Jake, who stood pale but determined. "Bullet fragmented. Have to get all the pieces." "He's going to make it, right?" Jake's prison-tough facade cracked, showing the scared brother underneath. Beck didn't answer immediately. Lying was a skill he'd mastered decades ago, but something about this situation demanded truth. "Depends on what else is coming." A groan from the corner announced Derek regaining consciousness. Beck's strike had been precise, damage without permanence. The agency taught efficiency, not cruelty. Usually. "Finish the bandage," Beck instructed Jake, moving toward their prisoner. "Exactly like I showed you." Derek's eyes flickered open, immediately alert. No confusion, No disorientation. He'd been trained to recover from worse. "Hello, Ghost." Derek's voice was raspy but controlled. Still quick for an old man. Beck zip-tied him to a chair with practiced motions. "Who hired you?" "You know how this works. I'd rather die." "No." Beck's voice held no emotion. "You'd rather talk, because if you don't, I'll hand you over to him." He nodded toward Jake. "Tell him exactly how you used his dying brother as cover. Let prison justice handle it." Fear flickered in Derek's eyes. Not of death, of pain. Long, amateur pain. "They'll kill me anyway." "Probably." Beck pulled a burner phone from Derek's pocket. "But it'll be professional. Quick. Unless—" A crackle of static from Derek's radio interrupted them. "Asset 2, report status." Beck's expression didn't change, but his mind raced. Asset 2 meant at least Asset 1. Probably more. "That's right," Derek smiled grimly. "You think I came alone?" "Storm's perfect cover for a sweep team. They're already in position." Jake looked up from his brother. "What's he talking about?" "How many?" Beck demanded. "Enough." Derek's smile widened. "Singapore wasn't your only mess, Ghost. Remember Buenos Aires, Prague? Someone's paying premium to tie up loose ends." Beck moved with sudden violence, fingers finding pressure points that made Derek gasp. "How many?" "6." Derek wheezed. "2 teams, thermal imaging. They'll breach when I miss. Next check-in." The radio crackled again. "Asset 2, respond. Or we initiate." Beck released Derek, mind-shifting to tactical mode. 6 operators with thermal imaging meant the cabin's basic camouflage was useless. They'd see every heat signature, every movement. "We need to run," Jake said, supporting his semi-conscious brother. "There's got to be a way." "No." Beck was already moving, retrieving hidden weapons from caches around the cabin. "Storm's too heavy. They'll hunt us down with thermal. Only chance is to hold here." "Hold? Against a professional hit team?" Jake's voice cracked. "We'll die." "Maybe." Beck checked his old agency backup piece. Still clean after 20 years, like riding a bike. "But they don't know I made some modifications to this place. And they're not the only ones who can use weather as cover." The radio buzzed one final time. "Asset 2, failed check-in confirmed. All teams execute primary plan. Terminate all targets." Beck handed Jake a weapon. "Basic choice time. Fight with me, maybe live. Run, definitely die." Jake checked the gun with practiced hands. Prison hadn't taught him nothing. "What about Marcus?" "Basement panic room, medical supplies, communications. Gear. He'll be safer there than with us." "You have a panic room? What kind of retiree are you?" Beck's smile held no humor. "The kind that knew retirement might not stick." He helped Jake move Marcus, quickly briefing him on the medical equipment. "Seal the door. Don't open it unless you hear the all-clear phrase." Which is, "Singapore sunshine." The irony wasn't lost on Beck. "Anything else means they got to me." Jake hesitated at the panic room door. "Why help us? We broke in, threatened you, because you're not the enemy." Beck checked his weapons one final time. "And because some debts can only be paid in blood." The radio came alive with coordinated movement reports. The sweep team was approaching, professional, methodical, exactly as Beck had been trained. Time to show them what else he'd learned in 30 years of wet work. "They'll come from multiple angles," he briefed Jake. "Use thermal to track us. Expect resistance, but not what they're going to get." "Which is?" Beck's eyes were cold as he moved to his firing position. A reminder of why some ghosts are best left alone. Outside, the storm raged as shadows moved through the snow. Inside, an old warrior prepared to teach a harsh lesson about the price of disturbing his peace. The quiet life was over. The ghost was awake, and someone was about to learn why he'd earned that name in the first place. Beck killed the cabin's power first. Not to hide. Thermal imaging made that pointless, but decades of experience had taught him that darkness changed how people thought, how they moved, how they feared. "They're spreading out," Jake whispered from his position near the window. "6 of them, just like he said." "8," Beck corrected, checking his weapon. "2 held back. Standard agency protocol. Always keep a reserve you don't tell the prisoner about." The storm howled outside, wind rattling windows and ice pelting. "The walls, perfect cover for movement, perfect cover for death. Remember what I told you," Beck said quietly. "They'll expect us to focus on the doors and windows. Standard entry points. But we won't. No." Beck's smile was cold in the darkness. "We're going to teach them about assumptions." The first explosion ripped through the night, launched from one of Beck's hidden perimeter devices. Not designed to kill, designed to disorient, to disrupt the thermal imaging they relied on with sudden heat blooms. "Contact front," a professional voice called from outside. "Multiple heat signatures." Beck was already moving. 20 years of living in this cabin had taught him every creaking board, every shadow, every angle. He'd built it that way, prepared. It just in case had finally come. The second explosion came from the opposite side, creating more false heat signatures, more confusion. Through his own thermal scope, courtesy of old agency contacts who still owed favors, Beck watched the sweep team's formation begin to break down. "They're splitting up," Jake reported. "4 moving to check the explosions." "Watch the back pair," Beck instructed. "They'll try to slip in during the chaos. Oldest trick in the book." "How do you know all this?" "Because I wrote some of those books." A window shattered in the kitchen. Beck didn't react. Let them think they were being clever, using the noise of the storm and explosions as cover. Let them think they had surprise. The first operator died, never knowing what hit him. Beck's modifications to the kitchen floor, pressure plates linked to compressed air pistons, launched a spray of metallic ball bearings at knee height. Non-lethal, technically, crippling at close range. The man's scream was swallowed by the storm. "Jesus," Jake breathed. "Don't watch them," Beck snapped. "Watch your sector. They'll be more cautious now, more professional." As if to prove his point, the remaining operators began a coordinated assault. Flashbangs through windows, tear, gas canisters rolling across floors, standard agency siege tactics. Beck reached up and pulled a cord. Throughout the cabin, hidden ventilation fans roared to life, sucking the gas up and out through concealed shafts. Another modification, another preparation for a day he'd hoped would never come. "They're pulling back," Jake called. "Regrouping." "No." Beck moved to a new position, creating space for the next phase. "Watch for." The cabin's roof exploded inward as shaped charges detonated. Beck had expected this too. Agency Manual, page 47. When dealing with prepared positions, change the assault axis, but he'd been agency too. Had written some of those manuals. The first operator to rappel through the new roof opening triggered Beck's next surprise. Electromagnetic. Pulses buried in the ceiling beams. Small, localized, but enough to fry thermal imaging and night vision equipment. More cursing from outside. More professional voices turning unprofessional. "They're getting desperate," Beck commented, sighting through his scope. "Losing initiative, about to make mistakes." "How are you so calm?" Jake demanded. "They're trying to kill us." "No." Beck's voice was ice. "They're dying for someone else's agenda. There's a difference." A new voice crackled over the captured radio, different from the others. Command voice. "Pull back and regroup. Target is showing agency-level preparation, switching to Protocol 7. Beck's blood ran cold. Protocol 7. He hadn't heard that. Designation in 20 years. Scorched earth. No witnesses, no evidence. "Jake," his voice was urgent now. "Get to the panic room now." "What?" "But Protocol 7 means they're about to burn this place to the ground, with everyone inside. It's what I would have done back then. Create a plausible accident. Blame the storm. Leave no traces." Jake hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll buy you time. Get to your brother. Radio when you're sealed in. The panic room is hardened against this. Should protect you." "Should." Beck was already moving, retrieving specific equipment. From hidden caches, Better odds than out here. Go, now! Jake ran. Beck didn't watch him leave. His mind was already processing options, calculating angles, remembering protocols he'd helped write 2 decades ago. Outside, the storm raged on. Perfect cover for what was coming. Perfect backdrop for violence. They wanted the ghost. Time to show them exactly why that name had once terrified even hardened operators. Sometimes the best way to survive a haunting was to become the thing they feared. Protocol 7 had one weakness. Beck knew because he'd helped design it. The procedure assumed a simple structure. Walls, roof, standard materials. It didn't account for someone who'd spent 20 years turning their home into a fortress. Sealed. Jake's voice crackled through Beck's earpiece. "Marcus is stable, but radio silence from now on," Beck ordered, moving through the darkness. "They'll be scanning frequencies." He reached his library wall, fingers finding hidden catches. The bookshelf swung away silently, revealing his real arsenal. Not just weapons, tools. Equipment gathered over decades of wet work, maintained meticulously even in retirement. The radio chatter outside had changed. Tactical frequencies coordinating the burn. They'd use thermite charges, he knew, probably placed at structural points. The fire would look natural, spread by the storm. Clean, professional, final. Beck grabbed specific items from his cache, breaching charges of his own, smoke grenades modified with his personal touch. And something special he'd acquired in Moscow. A prototype EMP device that could fry electronics within a focused radius. The first thermite charge detonated against the cabin's outer wall. The specially treated wood, another modification, resisted initially, but wouldn't hold forever. They'd placed the charges well, professional work. Beck moved to his command center, hidden behind another false wall. Screens showed feeds from cameras he'd hidden throughout the surrounding forest. The thermal imaging was useless now. Too many. Heat blooms from the charges, but he had other sensors. Movement trackers picked up the team's positions. 8 heat signatures, just as he'd counted, spread out in standard agency formation. Plus 1 more, further back. The commander, always staying clear of direct action, just like Beck had taught his own teams. Another thermite charge exploded. Smoke began seeping through seams in the walls. They'd expect him to react now, to run from the fire, to choose between burning or rushing out into their guns. Time to disappoint them. Beck activated his EMP device, watching in satisfaction as their tactical gear went dark. Comms, night vision, even their weapons' electronic sights, all dead. He heard cursing through the walls as professional operators suddenly found themselves operating blind, but Beck didn't need technology. He'd learned to kill long before fancy gadgets. Sometimes the old ways were best. The smoke was thicker now, but Beck had practiced this. Every movement memorized, every angle calculated. He pulled on his custom gas mask, not agency issue something. Better from contacts in Israel, and went to work. The first operator died to a garrote wire hidden in a doorframe. Clean, silent. The second took a knife between the ribs as Beck emerged from a concealed panel in the wall. The third had time to raise his weapon before Beck's throwing knife found his throat. 3 down, 5 to go. Plus, the commander, more thermite charges detonated. The cabin's outer shell was failing now, flames beginning to take hold. Smoke filled every space, turning the interior into a maze of shadow and death. Perfect hunting ground for a ghost. Alpha Team, report. The commander's voice crackled through captured comms. Bravo Team, anyone, report status. Beck smiled behind his mask, fear in that voice. Good. They were learning. A burst of gunfire tore through a wall, blind firing. From panicked operators, Beck moved like water around the bullets, decades of training taking over. 2 more operators went down before they realized where he was. The 6th died trying to reload with shaking hands. 2 left, plus the commander. The cabin was burning in earnest now, but not how they'd planned. Beck's modifications channeled the Fire controlled its spread. The smoke vented through hidden shafts, creating specific clear zones while filling others with impenetrable black clouds. Turn your home into a weapon. First lesson he'd learned in wet work. The seventh operator actually screamed when Beck emerged from the smoke behind him. The eighth showed more professionalism, managing to land a solid punch before Beck's knife found his heart. Just the commander now. Beck moved toward the perimeter, where his sensors showed the final heat signature. Time to find out who wanted. The ghost, back in action so badly. Time to send a message about the price of disturbing his retirement. The fire rose behind him, flames painting the snow-filled night in shades of orange and red. Somewhere in the storm, a worthy opponent waited, someone who knew the old protocols, the old ways. Beck checked his weapons one last time. Sometimes the past didn't stay buried. Sometimes it came back with thermite charges and kill teams, and sometimes it learned why some ghosts were best left alone. Sheriff Kate Morrison knew something was wrong even before she saw the orange glow in the storm. 20 years of law enforcement had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, every instinct screamed danger. "Dispatch, I'm approaching the Beck residence," she radioed, her patrol car fighting through snowdrifts. "Possible structure fire. Need fire and rescue on standby." Static answered. The storm was playing hell with communications, just like the bank robbers had probably counted on. But Kate hadn't expected them to hit Beck's cabin. It was too remote, too isolated, too perfect. The glow grew stronger as she approached, and now she could see figures moving through the storm, professional movements, military precision, not desperate fugitives. Kate killed her lights and parked behind a snowbank, drawing her weapon. Something much bigger than a simple manhunt was happening here. A voice carried through the wind, distorted but commanding. "Maintain perimeter. Target is agency trained. Do not underestimate." The voice cut off in a gurgle. Kate's blood ran cold. Agency trained. What had her quiet old hermit been involved in? Her radio crackled suddenly, making her jump. Not local dispatch. A different frequency altogether. "Ghost, this is Control. If you're monitoring, acknowledge." Kate froze. The voice was female, authoritative, and definitely not local law enforcement. She kept her radio on, listening. "Ghost, be advised. Hostiles are Section K. Rogue operators. Do not allow capture. Repeat, do not allow capture. Help is incoming, but delayed by weather. Section K." Kate had heard whispers about them during her time with the FBI task force. Black ops gone bad. Mercenaries with government training. The worst kind of trouble. An explosion lit up the night, followed by gunfire. Through the swirling snow, Kate saw a figure drop from Beck's roof, moving with impossible skill for a man his age. Two more figures pursued, firing bursts that kicked up snow. Kate had a choice to make. Protocol said wait for backup. Training said secure the perimeter. But something else, something deeper, said her quiet old friend needed help. She keyed her radio. "This is Sheriff Morrison, Millbrook County. I'm on scene." Silence. Then, "Sheriff, this is Control. You are now involved in a classified operation. Follow these instructions precisely." Inside the burning cabin, Beck heard the exchange through his own surveillance equipment. Kate was a good cop, too good to be dragged into this. But now she was involved whether he liked it or not. He touched his earpiece. "Control, this is Ghost. Still alive, Section K presence confirmed. Do not involve local assets. Repeat, keep the sheriff clear. Negative, Ghost. Sheriff Morrison is now your exit strategy. Section K has air support inbound. You have 15 minutes to clear the area." Beck cursed. Helicopters would change everything. Even his carefully prepared cabin couldn't stand against air support. A figure loomed through the smoke. The commander, finally making his move. Beck recognized the stance, the way he held his weapon. "Hello, teacher," the man said. Beck's blood ran cold. He knew that voice. Singapore. His last mission. The rookie he'd trained himself. Martinez, Beck replied. Still, cleaning up other people's messes? Still hiding from your mistakes? Martinez countered. Singapore was just the beginning. Now it's time to finish things. More figures emerged from the storm, a second team, held in reserve. Beck had trained Martinez too well. His earpiece crackled. Kate's voice, steady despite everything. Mr. Beck. I'm in position. South exit route is clear. Beck weighed options. The cabin was compromised. Kate was risking her life. And now Martinez was here making this personal time for the ghost to change tactics. You're right, Martinez, Beck called out, letting his voice carry. Time to finish this. But not here. Not now. He triggered his final surprise. Charges planted. In the cabin's foundation. Not to kill, to distract. The explosion sent snow and debris skyward, creating a wall of white. Beck moved instantly, decades of training taking over. 3 more operators went down before they realized he was among them. But Martinez was ready, anticipating his old mentor's move. Gunfire sparked off body armor as student and teacher finally clashed. Control, Beck grunted, ducking a strike. Be advised, Singapore situation is hot. Repeat, Singapore is compromised. Understood, Ghost. Switching to Protocol Black. Sheriff Morrison, execute containment plan. The night erupted in new chaos as Kate Morrison proved why small-town sheriffs shouldn't be underestimated. Her deputies had been quietly surrounding the area, using the storm as cover just as Section K had. Beck allowed himself a grim smile as he heard Martinez cursing. Sometimes the best weapons weren't the ones you planned for, but the ones that came from trust built over years of quiet. Mornings and shared coffee. The ghost wasn't alone anymore, and that changed everything. The burning cabin painted shadows across the snow as Beck moved through the storm. Martinez's men were professionals, but they'd never trained for this, never learned to fight a ghost in his own haunted house. You're slipping, old man. Martinez's voice carried through the wind. That roll left when you dodge. That's new. Age catching up. Beck didn't respond. Martinez was probing, trying to make him angry. Sloppy. He'd taught the kid better than that. How's the shoulder? Martinez continued. That bullet wound from Prague still giving you trouble? Amazing what the agency keeps in its medical files. A burst of gunfire split the night. Beck was already moving, using his intimate knowledge of the terrain. Every tree, every rock, every shadow, he'd spent 20 years memorizing this battlefield. Sheriff Morrison, he whispered into his comm. Status? Deputies have the perimeter, Kate responded. But we've got problems. State police picked up. Helicopter signatures approaching from the east. 10 minutes out, maybe less. Beck processed this while eliminating another Section K operator. The man died without sound. Another shadow claimed by the storm. Martinez is stalling, keeping us contained until air support arrives. Ghost, this is Control. Be advised, we have no friendly assets in the air. Repeat, any aerial support is hostile. Martinez's laugh echoed through the darkness. Hear that? Cavalry's coming, just like Singapore. Remember Singapore, teacher? Remember? What happened when you hesitated? Beck's jaw tightened. Singapore, the mission that broke him. The night he chose family over duty and people died, including... Remember, Anna? Martinez twisted the knife deeper. Your hesitation got her killed. Your weakness. Your sentiment. Anna. Beck's partner for 15 years, the one person who knew all his secrets. Who died because he couldn't take the shot with his daughter in the kill zone. That's what this is about, Beck called back, changing positions. Revenge for Anna? This is about finishing what started in Singapore, about cleaning up loose ends. Martinez was moving too, trying to flank. The agency wants its ghosts laid to rest, old man, permanently. A new sound cut through the storm, rotors approaching. The helicopters were coming early. Time was running out. Kate, Beck whispered, get your people clear. This is about to get hot. Like hell, the sheriff responded. We've got your back. Not for this. Martinez is Section K, but he's got agency clearance. Your deputies won't stand a chance. Then give me something to work with. Beck made a decision. The panic room, my insurance files, everything the agency wants buried. It's all there. Get to Jake and Marcus. Get them out. Get that evidence to control. What about you? Beck checked his weapons. 2 magazines left, 3 throwing knives, and one last surprise Martinez hadn't figured out yet. I'm going to teach my last student his final lesson. The helicopters were visible now, heavy gunships designed for wet work. They'd turn this mountainside into a killing ground. Unless... Martinez! Beck projected his voice through the storm. You want to finish Singapore? Let's finish it. Just you and me. No guns, no backup, the way I taught you. Silence then. You're trapped. Why should I give up my advantage? Because you need to know. Beck laid his weapons in the snow. You need to know if you could really beat me. If you're finally better than your teacher. More silence. The helicopters grew closer. Control. Beck subvocalized into his hidden comm. Execute Protocol Ghost. Authorization Sierra 99. Acknowledged. Ghost Protocol active. Good hunting. Martinez's voice came again, closer now. No weapons. No weapons. Just skill. Student versus master. Winner takes the Singapore files. And the loser? Beck smiled in the darkness. The loser joins Anna. A figure emerged from the storm. Martinez, younger, stronger, but carrying the same lethal grace Beck had helped instill. He'd been the best student, the perfect operative, until Singapore broke something in him too. Your last lesson, old man. Martinez shed his weapons. How to die with dignity. They came together in the snow as the helicopters reached firing range. Student and teacher, weapon and wielder, ghost and ghost hunter. Time to find out if the past could finally be laid to rest. The first exchange of blows was pure agency training, probing attacks designed to test defenses. Beck recognized his own techniques mirrored back at him, perfected through years of practice. Martinez had been an excellent student. You got sloppy. In retirement, Martinez grunted, landing a strike that Beck barely deflected. The ghost I knew wouldn't have let anyone get this close. Beck responded with a combination that drove Martinez back a step. The ghost you knew died in Singapore. No, Martinez launched a counterattack. He just proved what I'd always suspected, that he was weak, human, fallible. The helicopters circled overhead, their spotlights cutting through the storm, but unable to penetrate the thick forest canopy. For now, this fight remained personal. You blame me for Anna, Beck said, ducking under a kick. But you never understood what really happened that night. I understood perfectly. Martinez's next strike carried real fury. You had the shot. Reznikov was right there, but you froze because your precious daughter was at the party. Their combat moved through the trees, each man using the terrain to their advantage. 2 decades of age difference showed in their styles. Martinez all power and speed. Beck pure economy of motion. Anna trusted you, Martinez continued, pressing his attack. She believed in you. And you let her die because you couldn't pull the trigger. Beck caught a punch, used Martinez's momentum to slam him into a tree. Anna knew about Sarah. She's the one who spotted her at the party. She's the one who called off the shot. Martinez froze for just a moment. You're lying. Check the files you stole. Anna's last transmission. She aborted the mission. Not me. No! Martinez's attack turned savage, professional training giving way to raw emotion. She would have told me we were lovers. Beck's voice was soft even as he defended against the onslaught. Yes, she told me about that too, asked me to keep it quiet, against regulations, of course, but I understood love making people break the rules. Through the storm, Kate's voice crackled in Beck's hidden earpiece. Evidence secured. Jake and Marcus are safe, but those choppers are setting up for a strike run. Beck didn't acknowledge, couldn't risk Martinez spotting the comm. Instead, he pressed his advantage, physical and psychological. Anna knew what would happen if I took that shot. Knew Sarah would see her father kill someone. She made a choice to protect my daughter, to protect my humanity. She died because of that choice. Martinez's attacks were becoming erratic, emotional. Because you trained us to be perfect, to never hesitate, to never show weakness. Beck weathered the assault, letting Martinez tire himself. I trained you to be human. Anna understood that. Why didn't you? Above them, the helicopters began moving into attack formation. Time was running out. She loved you, Beck continued, his voice carrying over the wind. Said you reminded her of me when I was young, all that talent, all that dedication. She worried the job would burn it out of you, turn you into something harsh, something cruel. Shut up! Martinez launched a killing strike, one Beck himself had taught him, but age and treachery beat youth and skill. Beck turned the attack. Aside used Martinez's momentum to throw him to the ground. She died trying to save 3 people that night, Beck said, standing over his former student. Sarah's innocence, my humanity, and your soul. Martinez lay in the snow, chest heaving. The agency doesn't believe in souls. Anna did. That's why they really wanted her dead. Why they sent that second team, the one you never knew about. The one that shot her while you were busy blaming me. The helicopters were moving into firing position. Soon, this whole mountainside would be torn apart. Ghost protocol is active, Control's voice whispered in Beck's ear. Ready on your mark. Martinez looked up at his former teacher, and for a moment Beck saw the young agent he'd once been. Before Singapore, before Anna, before the agency hollowed him out. Prove it, Martinez whispered. Beck reached down, offered his hand. Come with me to the panic room. See the evidence yourself. Anna left a letter explaining everything, her last report, the truth about that night. Martinez stared at the offered hand. Above them, gunship weapons whirred to life. Choose quickly, Beck said softly. Anna made her choice. I made mine. What's yours going to be? The storm raged around them as student and teacher faced their final crossroads. Sometimes the hardest ghosts to lay to rest were the ones we carried inside. In Beck's panic room, Marcus watched the security feeds with growing horror. His medical training, 2 years of nursing school before their mother's illness derailed everything, told him exactly what kind of damage was being inflicted outside. They're gonna kill each other, he muttered, pressing a hand against his bandaged side. Jake paced the confined space, checking his weapon for the 100th time. Beck knows what he's doing. Has to. Both of you, be quiet, Sheriff Morrison ordered, reviewing the files she'd pulled from Beck's secure safe. Control needs to hear this. The radio crackled. Confirmed, Sheriff. Evidence is substantial. Ghost protocol remains active. Marcus moved to a different monitor, watching Beck and Martinez circle each other in the snow. Their fighting was nothing like the brawls he'd seen in hospital ERs. This was something else, something lethal and precise. I should be out there, Jake said. Beck saved our lives. We owe him. You'd only get in his way. Kate's voice was firm. Best thing we can do is secure this evidence. Make sure Anna's death wasn't for nothing. Marcus's attention caught on one particular file. Wait, these medical records, the ones Derek was after, they're not just about Singapore. Kate moved to look. Her face hardened. Control, are you seeing this? These records show systematic elimination of agency assets, staged accidents, cleanup, operations targeting retired operatives, Ghost's insurance policy, Control confirmed, proof that the agency's been killing its own people, creating deniability. The helicopter's rotors grew louder. Marcus watched them setting up attack patterns on the monitors. His medical mind calculated blast radiuses, survival chances. They're not just here for Beck, he realized. They're here for all of us, everyone who's seen these files. Jake checked his weapon again. Then we fight. No. Kate's voice cut through the tension. We complete the mission. Get this evidence out. Make it public. The radio crackled again. Sheriff Morrison is correct. Ghost Protocol is designed for exactly this scenario. Beck's last mission, ensuring the truth gets out. Marcus watched the monitor as Martinez lunged at Beck. Teacher and student locked in a dance of death while time ran out. He knew, Marcus said softly. Beck knew they'd come eventually. That's why he helped us. Why he saved my life. He needed witnesses, people to verify his evidence. Jake stopped pacing. So we were just part of his plan. No, Kate's voice was certain. He could have let you die. Used your deaths to create more evidence against the agency. Instead, he protected you, like Anna protected his daughter. On the screen, Beck and Martinez separated, breathing hard. Their fight had moved them into a clearing, directly in the helicopter's sights. Control, Kate barked. Those gunships are about to fire. Ghost Protocol fully armed, awaiting Beck's signal. Marcus leaned closer to the monitor, his medical training noting how Beck favored his left side. Internal bleeding, probably. Martinez wasn't in much better shape. Come on, he whispered. There has to be another way. Something besides more death. As if in answer, Beck extended his hand to Martinez. An offer of trust, of redemption. The helicopters opened fire. No! Marcus tried to rise, but his wounds protested. Jake caught him, held him back. On the screen, Beck and Martinez dove in opposite directions as bullets tore up the snow. But Martinez's role carried him toward Beck, not away. Student choosing teacher. Man choosing humanity over orders. Ghost. Protocol activated. Control's voice held satisfaction. All units execute! The night sky erupted with new sounds, more helicopters emerging from the storm. But these flew agency colors. Cavalry's here, Kate breathed. Marcus watched in amazement as Beck's insurance policy revealed itself. Not just files, an entire backup plan. Agency loyalists who'd been waiting for proof of corruption, for evidence of the illegal cleanup program. The Section K gunships found themselves suddenly outnumbered, outgunned and exposed. Sometimes, Kate said quietly, the best weapon is the truth. Marcus looked at his brother, saw the same realization in Jake's eyes. They'd started this night as fugitives, running from one failed robbery. Now they were part of something bigger, something that might actually matter. Control, Kate reported. Evidence is secured. Witnesses are safe. Ghost Protocol is successful. Acknowledged, Sheriff. Be advised, this is just the beginning. Beck's evidence will shake the agency to its core. There will be consequences. Marcus turned back to the monitor, watching Beck help Martinez to his feet as friendly forces landed. Around them. Some consequences are worth it. The storm was beginning to clear, dawn's first light touching the mountains. Something was ending here. Something else was beginning. And Marcus realized that sometimes the youngest ones, the witnesses, the survivors, had the most important job of all, remembering, testifying, making sure the ghosts didn't die in vain. Victory had come too easily. Beck knew it even as agency loyalist forces secured the area. 20 years of wet work had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now every instinct screamed that something was wrong. All Section K operators. Accounted for, Kate reported, emerging from the panic room with Jake and Marcus. Agency cleanup crews are... Get back inside, Beck snapped, pushing Martinez toward her. Now! What is it? Martinez's eyes scanned the tree line. Professional. Instincts kicking in. Section K is contained. Think. Beck's voice was harsh. You were agency. When did an operation this size ever have just one layer? Martinez's face went pale. The Singapore Protocol. The what? Kate demanded, already shepherding the brothers back toward safety. Every major agency operation has a failsafe, Beck explained, checking his remaining weapons. A second team, hidden so deep even the first team doesn't know they exist. Insurance against exactly what just happened. Ghost, Control's voice crackled with sudden urgency. We're detecting new signatures. Multiple stealth aircraft approaching. Beck's blood ran cold. Not approaching, already here. The air itself seemed to shimmer as advanced cloaking technology deactivated. 3 black aircraft hung in the dawn sky, their designs unlike anything the public had ever seen. Even the agency loyalist helicopters looked obsolete in comparison. Mother of God, Martinez breathed. Those are Wraith units. I thought they were just rumors. Rumors you were meant to believe. A new voice cut through their comms. Cultured, precise, familiar in a way that made Beck's spine turn to ice. Director Lancaster, Beck said quietly, still hiding in shadows and sending others to die? Come now, Ghost. Who do you think authorized? The Singapore operation. Who do you think made sure your daughter was at that party? Beck's hands tightened on his weapon. 20 years of questions suddenly had answers. You set it all up. Anna, Sarah, the failed mission, my retirement. Of course, Lancaster's voice held cold amusement. We needed you compromised, needed you to run, to hide yourself away with all that dangerous knowledge locked in your head, to become exactly what you became, a hermit with a fortress full of evidence. The Wraith units began deploying teams, operators in suits that seemed to bend light around them, next-generation wetwork units that made Section K look amateur. You wanted me to gather evidence, Beck realized, to collect proof of agency corruption, to create exactly the insurance file I created, which you've now conveniently gathered in one place, along with all the witnesses we need to eliminate. Quite efficient of you, Martinez moved to cover the panic room entrance. The Section K operation was a feint, meant to trigger Ghost Protocol to expose agency loyalists. Very good. Lancaster actually sounded pleased. You see, Ghost, the agency isn't corrupted, it's evolving. The old guard, with their quaint ideas about oversight and accountability, they've become a liability. Your evidence will help us eliminate them. Clean house. Beck's mind raced. The panic room's defenses were good, but not against this level of technology. They had minutes, at best. Control, he subvocalized. Status, static. Then a new voice. Control is indisposed, Ghost. All loyalist forces have been neutralized. The Wraith operators were moving with terrible precision, securing the area. No escape routes left, no backup coming. You have one chance, Ghost, Lancaster offered. Give us the evidence. Give us the witnesses. Walk away. You've more than earned. Your retirement... Beck looked at the others. Kate, fierce and determined. Martinez seeking redemption. Jake and Marcus, innocent pawns drawn into a shadow war. All depending on him, just like Singapore, just like Anna. But this time was different. This time, he knew the real enemy. Actually, Director, Beck said quietly, I have a counteroffer. His fingers moved to a hidden panel on his tactical vest, a final failsafe, one last ghost in the machine. Oh? Lancaster's amusement remained. And what would that be? Beck smiled in the dawn light. Sometimes the best weapons weren't the obvious. Buttons? Why don't I show you what else I learned in Singapore? The real game was about to begin. The Wraith operators moved like living shadows, their advanced suits bending light and thermal signatures. Beck watched them through his remaining tactical display, counting angles and options. 16 operators, 3 stealth aircraft, 1 shot. At keeping everyone alive, you're trapped, Ghost. Lancaster's voice held that same cold amusement. That panic room won't hold against Wraith Tech, and your evidence dies with you. Kate, Beck whispered, status of the backup drives? Uploading now, the sheriff replied from inside the panic room. But these Wraith units are interfering with UA signals. Can't get a clean transmission. Martinez moved closer, covering Beck's blind spot like old times. What's the play, teacher? Because those suits aren't like anything we trained for. Beck's hand stayed near the hidden panel on his vest. Lancaster made one mistake. He forgot who designed the original Wraith prototype. Before Singapore, before everything went wrong. Wait, Martinez's eyes widened. That was you. The agency's Black Research Division. Where do you think they got the tech? Beck's smile was cold. And who do you think kept the kill switch? A new voice cut through their comms. Younger, feminine, familiar in a way that made Beck's heart ache. Hello, Father. Sarah. Beck's voice remained steady, but his hands tightened on his weapon. You're working for Lancaster now? With him, Sarah corrected. Someone has to guide the agency into the future, shape the next generation of intelligence operations. By killing your own people? Betraying everything the agency stood for? You taught me that, didn't you, in Singapore? When you chose your daughter over your duty, Martinez shifted uneasily. Beck, those operators are almost in position. The agency needs to evolve, Sarah continued. The old guard with their rules. And their conscience, they're obsolete, just like you. Beck thought of Anna, of the choice she'd made that night. The choice to save not just his humanity, but Sarah's soul. He'd failed then. He wouldn't fail now. Last chance, Ghost. Lancaster cut back in. Surrender the evidence, the witnesses. Walk away. Beck keyed his hidden comm. Marcus, you copy? Here. The young man's voice was steady despite everything. Found what you asked for in the medical files. It's worse than we thought. Upload status? 30 seconds, Kate reported, but we'll never get clear before you won't have 2. Beck's fingers found the specific sequence on his vest panel. Martinez, remember what I taught you about acceptable losses? His former student nodded grimly. Sometimes the mission requires sacrifice. Wrong. Beck's voice carried across the dawn air. That's what they taught us. What Anna died trying to change. The real lesson is, sometimes you sacrifice everything, except your humanity. The Wraith operators were in position now. Perfect formation, professional, lethal, just like he'd designed them to be. Time to make your choice, Ghost, Lancaster demanded. What's it going to be? Beck looked at the others. Kate, fierce and loyal. Martinez, seeking redemption. Jake and Marcus, innocent lives he'd sworn to protect, just like Singapore, just like Anna. But this time, actually, Beck said quietly, Anna made that choice for all of us. 20 years ago, when she chose humanity over duty, love over orders. His fingers completed the sequence. What are you doing? Sarah's voice held the first trace of uncertainty. Showing you what Anna died to protect. Why some ghosts don't rest. Beck's smile was sad. And why a father's love is stronger than any weapon. The dawn sky erupted with new signatures as Beck's final protocol activated. Not weapons, not reinforcements. The truth. Every screen, every radio, every communications. Device for 100 miles suddenly carried the same signal. Anna's final report, the real Singapore files, evidence of decades of agency corruption, of Lancaster's secret directives, of the systematic elimination of agents with consciences, and most importantly, proof of a daughter's willing participation in her father's planned execution. No! Lancaster's control cracked. Wraith units, terminate all targets. But the operators stood frozen, their advanced suits suddenly locked down by the very fail-safes Beck had built into the original design. You forgot the first rule of wet work, Beck said softly. Never trust technology more than human heart. The dawn light painted the mountains gold as Beck's final game was revealed. Sometimes the greatest weapons weren't the ones you could hold. Sometimes they were the choices you made. The humanity you protected, the love you never lost, even when it broke your heart. Lancaster's voice had lost its amusement. You think this changes anything? Those files, that evidence? It only reaches local channels. We'll contain it, like we contain everything. Check your feeds, Beck replied calmly. It's not just local. Sarah's sharp intake of breath confirmed it. Father, what did you do? The same thing you did, daughter. I planned ahead. Beck moved carefully, keeping the frozen Wraith operators between him and the stealth aircraft. 20 years of retirement gave me time to build a network. People who owed favors. People who remembered what the agency used to stand for. Martinez checked his tactical display. It's going global. Every major news outlet, every intelligence agency, even the agency's own internal channels, Beck finished. Anna's final report, broadcast to every agent worldwide. The truth about Singapore, about Lancaster's cleanup program, about a daughter's betrayal of everything her father taught her. Kill them. Lancaster's control shattered completely. Override the suits. Kill them all. But the Wraith operators remained motionless, trapped by Beck's original failsafes. Some ghosts couldn't be exorcised. Some weapons remembered their creator. Kate, Beck called toward the panic room. Status? Evidence transmission complete. Local authorities are responding to the broadcast. State police, FBI. Everyone's coming. Sarah's laugh was bitter. You think law enforcement can touch us? We're beyond their jurisdiction, beyond any oversight. Not anymore. Beck's voice carried genuine sadness. Check your emergency channels, daughter. The agency's old guard is moving. The ones you thought were weak, obsolete. They've been waiting for this proof. Martinez's tactical display lit up with new signatures. Multiple agency teams converging. Official sanction. Lancaster. They're coming for you. Impossible. But fear had replaced anger in the director's voice. I am the agency. No. Beck stood straighter, years of retirement falling away. You're just another ghost, one that needs to be laid to rest. Sarah's voice turned desperate. Father, please, we can still contain this, still protect the family name. Family? Beck thought of Anna, of Singapore, of choices made and prices paid. You forgot what that word means the night you agreed to help kill me. The stealth aircraft began powering weapons, Lancaster's last resort. If I burn, Ghost, you burn with me, you and everyone you tried to protect. But Beck was already moving. Martinez, get them clear. Kate, execute Omega Protocol. His former student understood immediately. Beck, that's suicide. Those aircraft will be focused on me. Beck checked his weapons one last time. Get my evidence and my witnesses to safety. Complete the mission. Like hell, Kate's voice carried through his calm. I've got another option, one you planned for, even if you won't admit it. Beck's blood ran cold. Kate, don't, but the sheriff was already broadcasting. Attention, all units. This is Sheriff. Morrison, authorization code Sierra Echo 9. Ghost Protocol Omega is now active. The morning sky lit up as hidden anti-aircraft weapons emerged from the mountain slopes. Beck's final insurance policy, not just evidence, not just networks, but teeth. You really did plan for everything, Martinez said softly. Not everything. Beck watched as Sarah's aircraft began emergency protocols. Not this. Kate, get them out, now! The panic room door sealed as Martinez herded everyone inside. Only Beck remained, facing the chaos he'd unleashed. Lancaster's voice held pure venom now. You'll die alone, Ghost, like you were always meant to. No. Beck's smile was gentle as he thought of Anna, of choices made and prices paid. I died in Singapore. What you're facing now is just a ghost. The dawn exploded with light and fury as Beck's last battle began. Sometimes the hardest wars weren't fought with weapons. Sometimes they were fought with truth, with choices, with the ghosts we couldn't lay to rest. And sometimes the only way to win was to become the very thing they feared most. A ghost with nothing left to lose. The first missile from Beck's hidden anti-aircraft batteries caught Lancaster's lead Wraith completely by surprise. The stealth aircraft's advanced technology meant nothing against old-fashioned high explosives placed by someone who knew exactly where to hit. Kill him! Lancaster's voice cracked with fury as his aircraft banked hard. Sarah, terminate the target! Beck was already moving, using the frozen Wraith operators as cover. His daughter's aircraft opened fire, but her heart wasn't in it. Her shots went wide, tearing up snow and earth but missing him completely. "Still can't do it, can you?" Beck called out, rolling behind a fallen tree. "Still can't kill your father." "In cold blood, you're forcing my hand." Sarah's voice held desperation now. "Everything I did was to protect you, to give you a way out. By helping Lancaster eliminate the old guard? By betraying everything I taught you?" Another missile streaked skyward, clipping Lancaster's wing. The agency director's curses filled the comm as his aircraft struggled to maintain altitude. The Dattier agency was dying. Sarah fired another burst, still deliberately missing. "Lancaster showed me the truth, how the old ways were failing, how conscience and humanity made us weak." Beck triggered his next surprise, charges planted throughout the terrain, creating a maze of fire and smoke. Standard agency aircraft had thermal imaging, but the Wraiths relied on more advanced tech he'd helped design, tech with specific blind spots. "Is that what you told yourself in Singapore?" Beck moved through his own smokescreen like a ghost. "When you helped set up Anna, when you made sure I'd hesitate taking that shot, I didn't know they'd kill her." Real pain in Sarah's voice now. "Lancaster promised no one would die. It was just supposed to force your retirement." The third missile found its mark. Lancaster's Wraith spun out of control, emergency systems screaming. The director ejected moments before his aircraft exploded, his advanced suit deploying a stealth. "Shoot! Ghost!" Lancaster's voice held pure hatred now. "You're destroying everything we built, everything we sacrificed for." "No." Beck emerged from the smoke behind a Wraith operator, using the frozen suit as a shield. "I'm reminding everyone what those sacrifices were for, what the agency was meant to be." Sarah's aircraft hung lower now, hesitating. "Father, please. We can still fix this. Still be a family." "Family?" Beck's laugh held no humor. "Ask Lancaster about family, about how he used yours as a weapon, about all the other agents' families he targeted. Check the files, Sarah. See what you really served." Lancaster landed hard in the snow, his suit's stealth systems flickering. "Don't listen to him. He's trying to manipulate you, just like he always did." But Sarah's aircraft had stopped firing. Through his tactical display, Beck could see her accessing the transmitted files, seeing the truth about Singapore, about Anna, about everything. "You..." Her voice shook. "You killed them all. Everyone who wouldn't comply, every agent who showed conscience, even their families. We did what was necessary." Lancaster drew his sidearm, aiming at Beck, "to forge a stronger agency, to eliminate weakness, Sarah." Beck's voice was gentle now. "Anna died trying to protect you, to protect your humanity. Don't let that sacrifice be for nothing." For a moment, the morning hung, suspended. Lancaster's weapon trained on Beck, Sarah's aircraft hovering between them, the frozen Wraith operators standing silent witness. Then Sarah saw the last file, the one Beck had saved for this moment. "Mom." Her whisper carried pure anguish. "The car accident. It wasn't..." "Lancaster needed you angry," Beck said softly. "Needed you to blame me for abandoning the family, for choosing the agency over love." "Insurance," Lancaster spat, "against exactly this moment. Against a father and daughter remembering what really matters." Sarah's aircraft turned, weapons now targeting Lancaster. "You killed my mother, used me against my father, turned me into exactly what the agency needed." Lancaster's smile was cruel. "The perfect weapon, just like your father was before he grew weak." Beck moved with the liquid grace that had earned him his nickname. Lancaster's shot went wide as a knife. Anna's knife, carried for 20 years, found his gun hand. "Weakness?" Beck's voice was ice. "Let me show you what this ghost can still do." Lancaster's advanced suit sparked and died as Beck's EMP pulse hit it point blank. The director stumbled, suddenly vulnerable. Human, afraid. "Sarah," Beck called up to his daughter's aircraft. "Your choice. End him, or let justice take him, but make it your choice, not his. Lancaster looked between them, seeing his perfectly crafted weapon turning against him. Sarah, remember your training. Remember your duty. I remember everything, Sarah whispered. Every lie, every manipulation, every death you caused. Her aircraft's weapons powered down. That's my girl. Beck's smile held real pride as police sirens approached, as agency retrieval teams converged, as justice finally caught up to the Ghostmaker. Sometimes the greatest victory wasn't in killing. Sometimes it was in choosing life, in choosing humanity, in choosing love, even when the ghost inside screamed for blood. Lancaster knelt in the blood-stained snow, his advanced suit dead, his empire crumbling as agency retrieval teams surrounded the area. Through Beck's tactical display, he could see Sarah's aircraft landing nearby, her own choice finally made. You have no idea what you've done, Lancaster snarled. The enemies we held back, the threats we contained. By becoming the very thing we fought against. Beck kept his distance, knowing a cornered ghost was most dangerous. By killing our own people. Kate emerged from the panic room with her deputies securing the area. Martinez coordinated with the arriving agency teams, his redemption found. In choosing the right side. The world needs shadows, Lancaster insisted, needs people willing to do the necessary things. No. Sarah's voice carried across the clearing as she emerged from her aircraft. It needs people willing to stand in the light, to face consequences, to remember their humanity. Jake and Marcus appeared from the panic room, evidence secured. The younger brother's medical training had already saved lives today, would save, more now that he had a second chance. Your mother would be proud, Beck said softly to Sarah. She always said you had her heart, her conscience. Don't speak of her, Lancaster lurched to his feet. You lost the right when you chose duty over. Family when you... His words cut off as Sarah's fist connected with his jaw. 20 years of manipulation, of lies, of orchestrated tragedy behind that strike. You killed my mother, she said quietly. Used me against my father. Tried to turn me into something hollow. Empty. She looked at Beck. Like you tried to do. To all of us. Agency teams were recovering the frozen Wraith operators now. Beck's failsafe had saved their lives, given them a chance to choose again, to remember their own humanity. It's over, Martinez reported, approaching with handcuffs. Agency leadership is in upheaval. The old guard is taking control again. Your evidence, it changed everything. Lancaster laughed, blood staining his teeth. You think this ends with me? There are others, always others. The shadows never die. No, Beck agreed, thinking of Anna, of choices made and prices paid. But they can be brought into the light, can be reminded why we draw lines, why we hold on to our souls. Sarah moved to stand beside him, daughter with father, ghosts finding peace. That's what Anna died protecting, wasn't it? Not just me, not just you, but the idea that conscience matters, that humanity matters, even in shadows. Beck nodded, especially in shadows. Kate approached with news from her radio. State police have the bank robbery scene. Evidence shows the guard shot first, without warning. Marcus and Jake, they're cleared. The brothers exchanged looks of disbelief, a second chance, earned through choices made when tested. You planned all of this, Lancaster accused as Martinez cuffed him. Used these pawns to trigger your endgame. No. Beck's voice held certainty. I planned for possibilities, for opportunities to make right choices. The rest... He looked at his daughter, at the unlikely allies fate had brought him. The rest was humanity, finding its way home. The morning sun broke fully through the storm clouds, painting the blood-stained snow in shades of gold. Agency teams secured Lancaster, recovered. The Wraith operators began the long process of rebuilding from truth. What happens now? Sarah asked quietly. Beck looked at the cabin where he'd hidden for 20 years, at the fortress that had protected him until he was ready to protect others. "Now we remember," he said. "Remember Anna. Remember why some lines can't be crossed. Remember that even ghosts can find their way back to life." Martinez approached with an agency commander, one of the old guard, come to restore what was lost. "Ghost," the commander nodded respectfully. "We'll need your help to rebuild, to restore what the agency should be." Beck felt Sarah's hand slip into his, felt the weight of 20 years of preparation lift from his shoulders. "Not Ghost," he said quietly, "not anymore. Just a man who remembered his humanity, who had help remembering." The commander smiled. "Then help us remember too. Help us find our way back." Beck looked at his daughter, saw Anna's heart beating in her eyes, looked at Kate and Martinez, at Jake and Marcus, all souls who'd chosen light over shadow when tested. "Together," he said simply, "sometimes the hardest ghosts to lay to rest were the ones we carried inside. But sometimes, with help, even ghosts could find their way home. Find their way back to life, back to love, back to the humanity that made all the shadows worth fighting." Lancaster's bitter laugh faded as they led him away. The shadows never died, he'd said, but the light, Beck knew, watching his daughter smile, the light always found its way through. 1 month later, Beck stood in his rebuilt cabin, watching the Montana sunrise paint the mountains gold. The fortress had become a home again, its shadows finally at peace. "Coffee's ready," Sarah called from the kitchen. She'd been staying with him, both of them relearning what family meant, what trust could be rebuilt from broken pieces. "Smells like Colombian dark roast," he observed. "Anna's favorite." Sarah handed him a mug, not his old one, shattered in that first firefight, but one she'd bought him. A Father's Day gift, 20 years late. "She taught me how to brew it right back then, before everything." Beck smiled. Some memories were worth keeping. Kate's patrol car crunched up the drive right on schedule. But now she brought reports about Marcus's nursing school admission, about Jake's work with veteran rehabilitation. Second chances earned through choices made. Martinez checked in regularly too, helping the agency rebuild from Lancaster's shadow. The old guard was back in control, remembering its purpose, its humanity. "The nightmares are getting better," Sarah said quietly, watching the sun rise. "Less about Singapore now, more about possibilities." Beck understood. Some ghosts never died, but they could find peace, could remember why they haunted in the first place. "Anna would be proud," he said simply, "of all of us." The morning light caught Sarah's smile, her mother's smile full of heart and hope. Even shadows couldn't dim that light forever. Sometimes the hardest battles weren't fought with weapons or tactics. Sometimes they were fought with choices, with trust, with love, and sometimes even ghosts could find their way home.